Thank you for staying with us. Insecurity in Nigeria has become a recurring issue that affects the lives of many citizens. In addressing this menace, President Bola Tinubu and the 36 state governors have agreed to establish state police in the country. This was disclosed by the Minister of Information and National Orientation, Mohammed Idris, at the end of an emergency meeting summoned by the President in Abuja. The decision was one of the 6 high points of the emergency meeting at the Council chamber in view of the economic hardship in the country and upsurge of insecurity in different parts of the country. The minister also said that there will be a series of meetings to fine-tune the modalities for setting up state police. Joining us in our Abuja studio is Strategist, Policy Analyst, Group CEO, Global Investment and Trade Company, Baba Yusuf. Good morning. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me, Veronica and Ibrahim. Good morning.
Right. Now, a majority of persons have often called for state police to address this matter of the security challenges we are facing across the country. But for you, is this the silver bullet we need to addressing this matter?
Well, I think the need for state policing has been a topic that has been in the front burner for a long time. So it's long time coming. It's a welcome development. I'm very happy to hear the developments and look forward to the activation of the legislative process for us to be able to have policing, more effective and efficient policing at the subnational to support the federal police, which is the trend and the norm all over the world, especially with regards to the, emergence of multidimensional and sophisticated threats, within our domestic security systems in Nigeria. Of course, the state of insecurity has made it more important that we have such community policing, so better late than never. However, I have a little bit of some concerns about the hows, the whens, and how to go about it, because people, I heard very high-level thought leaders and even some governors making statements to say that community policing will solve our, internal security issues, which is far from it. I believe community policing is a very firm, forward-thinking step in the right direction, but it is one amongst a lot of other steps that should be taken within the ambit of an overall strategy for us to deal with what I call the homeland security threats going forward. But it's a welcome development, right step in right directions, and then we can distill the conversations on how to get the best of it.
It's quite interesting that we go to this point of where the government, those in authorities have actually agreed to, establishing state police. But then we need to now begin to talk about the modalities. What do you think the need to do to expedite the establishment of state police, so much so that we don't have to begin to, to mirror or to alter the existing structure in order not to also be duplicating, that's the word I'm looking for, to duplicate roles that the existing security structure or architecture is already holding. What can we do in order to not ensure that we are repeating what we already have?
Thank you very much, Ibrahim. I think the first thing is to do a gap analysis. I know a lot of people have done papers and thought, do some term sheets with regards to this. Well, with this situation, I think the first step is the legislative process. First of all, let us have, it enacted as law at federal and especially at state levels that we can have within our constitution, of course, and then at state levels that we can have community policing, state and local government level. And while we are doing that, this is a very important question for us to address now, to look at where are the areas or what are the roles of the state police, where will be the interlaps or the interplaying roles between the state police or the local government, the state and the federal police. What will be the state of play? What will be the procedure or the process? What will be the escalation points? But importantly also, Veronica and Ibrahim, like I said in my opening remarks, if we look at the role of community police in total as it is, basically it's information gathering, is to foster, better relationship with regards to getting information and gathering intelligence and preemptive steps to be taken to contain or curtail, threats as the case may be, keying into the federal police when and if necessary. There is this notion that maybe the state police may also be armed, but let us not forget that the process is very important. Recall that February last year, Federal High Court sitting in Abakaliki disbanded the Ebubuagu, sorry for the translation. Yes, the Ebubuagu was disbanded, by the judge at the Federal High Court with regards to issues of abuse of office, possessions of illegal arms, human rights abuses and all that. And because it is a new thing, it's an emerging thing in Nigeria, you will agree with me that there will be teething problems with regards that, after all, even the federal police is not, isolated from these issues of human rights abuses and all. So it's a work in progress. But the fundamentals have to be firm and the pillars have to be strong to know that the community police has boundaries and the community police will definitely have capacity issues. And while we're at it, in this country, we like going with the trend and everybody is talking as if community police will solve all the issues. Let us also understand that this will have a timeline of legislation before it becomes law. And then you get to the hiring and recruitment process of the people. And then you get to the tooling and the kitting of the people, doctoring and training and all that, before they now go into the system and we start feeling the impact. So in my own opinion, most likely, even if it starts today, before we start feeling those impacts, it may be 6 months to 1 year, depending on how serious it is taken. But that being said, I think while we are doing it, let us not lose focus on the bigger objective. The Nigerian police is seriously undermanned and underserved. We have less than 400,000 policemen, a ratio of 1 to 600 policemen. The Inspector General of Police has already cried out requiring about 190,000 boots on the ground. The military, less than 300,000. Why am I bringing this to the table? The Nigerian immigration, less than 20,000. Nigerian civil defense, less than 10,000. All these people have their statutory functions. And the gaps are showing with the inherent critical multidimensional insecurity issues we have. So while we are addressing the issue of state policing, like Ibrahim said, to make sure there won't be clashes of interest or clashes of roles, to also understand that now is the time to also increase the capacity of the federal police, because the community police will not take over the role of the federal police. The multidimensional terrorism we are facing is over and beyond community policing capacity. I reckon that the community police will also have the level of arm and armament they were able to carry. When you are dealing with ISIL, with Boko Haram, with bandits, you have to have that capacity at federal level to bring the intervention to the state level if and when it arises, which has arisen almost 10 years ago. So while we are looking at community policing, let us not lose sight of increasing the capacity of our military, police, immigration, and other law enforcement agencies, so that we don't take away the focus and then come back later to see that there's a lot of damage being done at the federal level. But the process had to be kickstarted. Let us have a timeline, but let us ensure there is a gap analysis so that everything will go in sync, so that we'll have a policy coherence, so that we can have cohesion of purpose, unity of purpose to deal with this cankerworm that is facing us in this country.
Absolutely. The other matter that is of concern to a majority of persons who have spoken about this matter of state police is the issue of budgeting, financing for these persons. Who takes responsibility? Should the federal government be the one to still be responsible for their welfare, their salaries? Looking at the situation on the ground, where you look at the budgeting for the police as it is right now, a majority of persons have said it's abysmally low. Should the state governments be handling those responsibilities? Do they have capacity? How many states are viable to handle the financing and take care of the welfare of these persons?
Very valid question, Veronica. Thank you for that question. First of all, there are two clear positions. The federal police will continuously be funded by the federal government. That is the role and that is the function. Federal government will have to increase the funding for our police, for our military, for our internal security, and for the defense of our territorial integrity. It is very obvious. While we are at it also, now that we are talking about community policing, you have raised a very valid point. While the governors are so excited, let us remind them and let us also note, we have over 20 states that for the past 5 years, since the minimum wage of 30,000 naira have been approved as agreed with the organized labor, they have not been able, or they have failed or refused to pay the minimum wage of 30,000, claiming issues around budgeting, about funding, around debt. Now we have a very critical, national issue to defend our territorial integrity and our domestic security for us to have a country. Now the governors will be smoked out, for want of a better phrase, with this issue of state policing, because funding will absolutely have to be funded by the state governments. We have seen it. We have seen models like the Hisba, model in Kano State, which has been functional since it was brought into play by the former governor of Kano State, His Excellency Ibrahim Shekarau. We have seen Amotekun in Ondo State. It has been active for a couple of years. But then it also can give us an indication of some of the man and material requirements, with regards to having a state police. So it's not enough to just say you want to have state police. You want to have a real state police and policing, not a ragtag arrangement of some people that will not be able to deliver the mandate. So the governors should already start wearing their thinking cap to know that this is not going to be business as usual. And this is, for me, a very good point, because there is a lot of gap or lacuna or gray areas with regards to what are the governors doing with the security vault of their state. So maybe this is an opportunity for us to see, a very good usage of that security vault to ensure that the state policing works. But it is absolutely the responsibility of the states. And this will now put the governors, on their toes to demonstrate capacity, competence, and readiness to do the job, which of course, as of governors, which the first one is the chiefs as chief security officers of their states, to show capacity and to show value innovation for them to find funding to fund this very critical provision or requirement, as the case may be.
Well, there would be need to probably overhaul the concept or the ideology behind the state policing. You mentioned HISPA, and that clearly, is something that, has also faced its own criticism, looking at the way they go about their duties as against the entire nation, the broad ideology or, ideological disposition of the nation. At the same time, we can't throw away the people's concern who are against the establishment of state police, one of which is the concerns that the state police could exacerbate existing ethnic and political tensions, then leading to further fragmentation of national security efforts. How do you, respond to this?
To be honest, Ibrahim, I equally share those sentiments for many years and many months, up until a couple of months ago. And if you want to hear me loud and clear in my mind, I'm still worried. We are still at a stage of political evolution in this country that it is just sad that things have gone so bad that state police has become a necessity, albeit the state of our political maturity has thrown off some very key issues, like you mentioned, and I mentioned earlier with regards to Ebubuagu, and you also mentioned with the case of the Hisba. Now, the problem is we have a political system that gives so much power to the governors. And to that extent, rightly so and wrongly so, because of the state of our political maturity, the concern is how these, organizations will be adequately or properly used, for the state, as the case may be, for the people, as the case may be, objectively, for the purpose for which it is set up. And that is the concern. And to be honest, we can pontificate and think about it for as long as we do. I don't want to overthink it. I will just call on the stakeholders, especially the legislators, and that's the problem. Because at the state level, the state legislators will have to be the ones to coin or framework, the act or the law, as the case may be. And you know that almost all, in fact, all the legislators are at the beck and call of the governors. So now we will test the sense of nationalism and patriotism of these governors to say we are not going to use these organizations, for any parochial interest, as you mentioned, which is a very key concern, but for the benefit of the people and for as an instrument of further unifying Nigeria, recognizing that the fundamental foundational issue of Nigeria is insecurity. And insecurity does not have any ethnic, religious, or parochial colorations. Today, we are facing the vagaries of insecurity that has directly impacted on our national economy and the social well-being of Nigerians. When you go to the market, it does not know language, it does not know religion. So I hope these governors will have the fear of God and remain above board to look at the bigger picture while we are going about doing this community policing. And of course, the legislators also have their own role to play. They have to play the role that the Constitution has provided for them, that the people have mandated them to do, to ensure that we have a law that will not be systematically abused. As the case may be, we have concerns about these organizations being used as political, instruments, because, we are now going to develop instruments of coercion, Veronica and Ibrahim, and that's a very powerful tool. Even without it, we see how these governors behave some of them behave like emperors in their states. And that is the concern of well-meaning Nigerians and even foreigners that are within the country. So it's not just about us also, because the way and manner you framework your state policing will also determine how foreign direct investment will come to your state, because people wouldn't want to come to a place that has been reduced or taken back over 100 years rather than taking us to today in terms of unity, in terms of peaceful coexistence, before we even talk about economy and social well-being. So it's a very valid point, but then it is left to the governors and the president to do the right thing so that we can have a better Nigeria. I think that is the whole objective ab initio. That should be the focus of everybody within the framework of this particular project.
At the heart of what you just said is the matter of trust, if we look at it critically. And when you look at the relationship that Nigerians have had with the police over the years, it has been strained over time because of this issue of trust. And now we are looking to have a state police. How do we begin to build this currency of trust between the people and the police, as well as the police and the people? Recall that sometime last year in Plateau State, the people once protested that they did not want the police in the state when there were issues, especially in Mangu and some other areas, that they didn't want the police to address the matter, that they will handle it themselves. But the state government came in and then still brought in the police. How do we address this matter of trust?
It's a very important issue, Veronica. The state of trust is a reflection of how bad things have become, and that is a poser for the Nigerian police and for the leaders of the country. There is a need for a total value reorientation with regards to our policing. I keep on saying it many times, because unless you do a value reorientation, and the first point is the recruitment process. When you have people that are members of criminal gangs that can pay, it is on the news, everybody knows that people procure recruitment. And that is the first point where you will have a rotten system that you can find difficult to change, because the most difficult thing to change in any society is culture. Now, the culture, as it were, the corporate culture of the Nigerian police, of course, is a subset of a national culture of a people. But this issue of police has been long-standing, and if we want to address it, it has to do with the recruitment process going forward. It has to do with a value reorientation of the Nigerian police force, as the case may be here, and that goes to Mr. President. That goes to also pieces of legislation. The National Assembly has a lot of work to do, by the way. They have a lot of work to do, the police, committee on police and all that, to see how can we bring in value reorientation on one hand, and to review laws to ensure that when policemen and women breach the law, we clearly see that actions are taken and there are consequences for that, so that it will deter. Of course, in fairness to them, we've seen pockets of action taken by the Nigerian police recently to show that there are some things that are done to show consequences. But to be honest, that is just marginal. There should be a total overhaul of the value system of the Nigerian police. Otherwise, this will permeate down to the community policing. As you have mentioned in the case of Hisba, for example, also in the case of the judgment at the court in Abakaliki, we need to have this done at the federal so that it will not permeate, because I reckon the initial recruitment process of the state policing at local government level will be take out of some retired either police or military people to drive those conversations, or even the active ones. And if that is the case, you can imagine what will happen. And corruption and abuse of power is actually contagious. And if you don't start dealing with it now, we are going to have a bigger problem, because we are going to create layers of state and local government policing that will go with this mentality and culture. I can leave to your imagination the level or the depth of rot. Rather than facing insecurity, we'll now have people that we have armed and with laws and ammunitions to become another layer of problem we are going to deal with. May it not happen in our time and even in the future. But it's a serious issue of trust. But before you talk about trust for the police, let's be fair. We need to have that trust issue is even with the political leaders. The political leaders, most of them are coming short. And especially at sub-national level, we need to see some traction so that there will be further engenderment of trust and confidence on our political leaders. Because if the political leaders are doing the right thing, it will cascade down to the police, to everywhere. Because they say it is when the head that is rotten, the body will also go the same way. So leadership from the top, value reorientation, change of recruitment process, consequence management, performance management, it should start now, and then it will cascade down to the subnationals.
A very fine place to leave the conversation. Baba Yusuf, strategist, policy analyst, group CEO, Global Investment and Trade Company. Thank you for your time.
I appreciate the opportunity. Thank you.